Patrick. We're going to be doing our second part of our practice for the Annamaya Kosha. So the Annamaya Kosha is the first layer of the koshas, or the first sheath of the body. We call it the food sheath, and it's all of the physical aspects of our body. It's a lot of what we work on in our hatha practice when we do asanas, when we do yoga postures. We're working on the Annamaya Kosha. We're trying to keep our physical form in the best shape possible. So for our practice today, we're going to be using a few different props, specifically our tennis ball, as a way to release some of the areas in the body that we hold chronic tension and that start to create imbalance in our body, and then we start to have issues with certain joints or back pain. So we want to start to create a connection of listening to our body early on when we first start to feel that there's an issue or there's tightness or there's an imbalance, so that we can address it right away and it doesn't turn into something bigger. We're going to do the second half of our practice here. It's going to be our lower body, our hips, our lower back, and our feet and our hamstrings. So we're going to start out by warming up those areas of the body because we want some blood flow through them. And then we're going to go back in with the tennis ball, get a little bit of deep tissue work, and then we're going to stretch them. Because once we have that good blood flow and good circulation, the muscles are warm, they're going to be much more easily stretched. We're going to get a lot more mobility if we stretch at the end than if we stretch at the beginning. So we're going to start out by warming up the hips, and you're going to be in a seated position, bringing your feet out in front and your hands behind you. You're just going to rock your legs from side to side, which is a little tricky in the tiny house. Yeah, rock from side to side. This opens up your hips and your lower back. It's a really gentle movement, so it's a nice one at the start of your practice. And you can kind of open and close as you're rocking. You have to coordinate. Okay, then we're going to come over and plant the feet onto the floor, and we're just going to come up and drop into a forward bend just to kind of see what that feels like right now, what our mobility is to start. Letting your head drop down, and you can even bend your knees a little bit if you need to. Yeah. And let your neck relax so that your head just hangs. You can shake your head side to side, up and down. And taking your inhale and starting to walk your way up, and we're probably cutting off our heads, but that's alright, because we're going to focus on our feet to start out with. We're going to stand in mountain pose with the feet hip distance apart. And then you're going to look at your feet and make sure that your toes are straight forward. We all have a tendency to either turn out or turn in, or lean our weight toward our pinky toe or toward our big toe. So you're trying to even that out and get the weight really nicely distributed in the foot. And then we're going to just roll up onto the toes and then back onto the heels, which is a little bit harder. Toes and heels. We're just going through the range of motion, warming up the ankle and the calf muscles, and seeing what the bottom of your feet feel like, seeing what your toes feel like, if there's any stiffness there, or if it's hard for you to balance on your toes or on your heels. Then dropping your heels down, just lifting your toes up off the floor. The ball of the foot stays on the floor. You're lifting your toes up, fanning them out as wide as they will get, and placing them down onto the floor, trying to keep that width. See how wide you can make the front of your foot. And you're looking down at your foot to see if there's a space in between all of your toes. Some of them are probably a little bit stiffer. You might find one that doesn't quite want to make some space. And then we're going to take a tennis ball. I'll give you one right there. And it's good if you do this on the mat because the tennis ball won't fly around as much. You're going to start out with the tennis ball right underneath the ball of your foot, And you're going to start to roll it forward and back through the center of your arch. If you feel a little shaky with your balance, you might want to have a hand on a wall or on a countertop or a chair. The nice thing about this is you can decide how much weight you want to actually put into the ball. When you find a spot that's a little bit tender, you're going to stop and just leave the ball there and lean as much weight as you can into it. Then go back into rolling forward and back. Move the ball toward the inside, toward the arch of your foot, and try to get some movement there. Then roll out toward the pinky toe, the outer edge of your foot. Bring the ball right into the center, right at the arch of the foot, and then lean into that. And then you'll start to cross fiber it. You're going to roll side to side. Going up right underneath the ball of your foot, making your way back toward the heel. Then come all the way back and try to stretch your toes over the ball without it flying away from you, hopefully. And then we'll switch feet. Go over to the other foot and start the same way, just rolling forward and back right through the arch. Notice if this foot feels any different than your other foot. Rolling toward the arch, a little bit toward the inside. Rolling toward the pinky toe, get the outer edge. It's kind of a challenge for your coordination too, to see if you can steer the ball where you need it. Now bring the ball right up toward the ball of the foot, right behind the ball of the foot, and lean your weight into it. Then go back into rolling. Take the ball directly into the center of your arch and do the same thing. Just lean your weight into it. And then back off a little bit and start to roll again. We'll switch from rolling front and back to going side to side. If you find a spot that's a little bit tender, you can make some circles into it, or you might want to lean onto it. Then the last part of this foot is just coming back and stretching your toes out. Releasing that, move the ball out of the way. Come back into your mountain pose, lift your toes up, spread your toes out, place them back down onto the floor or the mat, and just see if your feet feel different now, or if the contact between the feet and the floor feels different. Take an inhale, sweep your arms up, stretch all the way up to the fingertips. As you exhale, press your feet down into the floor. We'll exhale, dive down into a forward bend. Giving yourself a few breaths here to let your head drop down, softening your knees as much as you need to. But the idea is that after you roll out the arches of your feet and the bottoms of the feet, the connective tissue that runs up the back of the legs is going to have some more flexibility to it. You might feel like your forward bend now is easier than your forward bend before we rolled the feet out. Take your inhale, walk yourself halfway up, bring the hands right onto the shins, draw the shoulder blades back. Make your back as flat as possible. Stick your hips and your tailbone back. Exhale down into your forward bend. And we'll just start to bend the knees, and we're going to make our way back down onto the floor so that we can work on the hips. Now, working on the hips with a tennis ball can be a little bit intense, maybe even a little bit painful. But there's a couple ways that we can do this. So I'm going to take the tennis ball and I'm going to kind of rock over to the side, and then I'm going to find the meaty part just below the crest of my pelvis. So here's the crest of my pelvis, and I'm going to go right underneath it and kind of poke around. Oh, it's a little tender back there. So I'm going to get the ball there and then just roll back onto it. It's really up to me how much weight I'm rolling back onto the ball. If it's really tender, I can kind of lean off of it a little bit. And if you're on your mat, it's going to keep the ball from rolling out. And then I'm going to roll back onto it and sort of go up and down and side to side. And if I find a tender spot, I'm just going to stop and lean into it. And take a deep breath. And then move a little bit more. I wouldn't do that too long because you can make yourself pretty sore if you do that. And then I'm just going to switch over and do the same thing on the other side. Lean onto it, roll up and down, and side to side. Okay, so now that we've rolled out the hip muscles, then we're going to take the blanket right underneath the hips, and we're going to do a nice deep hip opener called fire log pose. You're going to try to stack one shin right on top of the other shin, as close as you can get. Yeah. Move that out. So bring this foot up a little bit higher. There. And you should fold your blanket up again, because if your hips are up higher, you could even actually sit on this. Because the higher your hips are, the higher your pelvis is, I should say, the easier it is to do some of the hip openers. So you can get that one down, and then this one over, and try to cross your ankle onto your other leg, if you can. Yep, and then I'm going to put a block underneath there. You can just lean on that. There. There you go. Okay. So if your hips are tight, you can take your yoga block or a pillow or anything and put it underneath the top hip. But if you feel like you have some more space, you can start to walk yourself forward. Just like we started with, we're going to take our breath into the space that feels tight. As you're leaning forward, wherever you feel the most restriction, you're going to visualize your breath moving into that space, breaking up that tension, creating mobility. Take your next inhale, use that to walk yourself up. You can uncross the legs, move your props out of the way, and then we'll do the same thing on the other side. So you're just going to cross the opposite leg onto the bottom. There, and then you tuck those underneath your hip. There you go. And sitting up straight like this might give you enough intensity and enough opening in your hip, but if you feel like you want to go deeper and intensify that, you're just going to start to walk yourself forward. As you walk forward though, don't hunch yourself down into it. We spend entirely too much of our day leaning forward anyway. Work on bringing your shoulders back and keeping some lift and some space in your heart. Using the slowest, deepest breaths that you can create to soften the muscles around your hip. Take your inhale, start to walk yourself up. We'll uncross the legs. You can go back into that rolling movement from side to side, just rocking the hips. And feel how different it feels when you do it now that you've rolled the hips and you've done that nice deep hip opener. A lot more mobility. So we're going to move our props out to the side, and then Patrick, you're going to go down onto your back. Move that holster out. Right there. Okay. So then you're going to keep your feet hip distance apart. Yep, knees up toward the ceiling. And then you're going to push your feet down into the floor to lift your hips up into a little bridge. Yep. And then we're going to take the tennis ball, and you can actually kind of position them one on either side of your spine. So you want to make sure that you don't have pressure directly on your spine, but you're going one on either side to where your back muscles feel tight, your lower back. And then you just let yourself drop down onto them. You can keep a little bit of pressure into your feet so that not all of your weight is dropping down onto the tennis ball. And then if it doesn't feel like it's right, just reposition it a little bit. And then once you're on the tennis ball where you want it, you can do a little shifting side to side. You can do a pelvic tilt where you tuck your tailbone and then release. So there's some movement up and down there. But definitely spend some time just being still and letting your body weight gradually sink down onto the tennis ball. The longer you do that for, the deeper that tennis ball is going to be able to get. It'll get to some of the deeper tissues that tend to chronically hold tension, especially in the lower back. Take a full inhale and then really deep exhale. As you exhale, let the body soften down. What you're doing is actually letting go of resistance. There's a resistance to the pressure that the tennis balls are putting into the muscle. The more you let go of resistance, the deeper that pressure is going to get. Then you can reach back, lift your hips up, and slide the balls up a little bit higher or lower depending on where you feel like you need it. And go through that same process. Gentle side to side rocking, pelvic tilt forward and back. Gradually releasing more and more of your body weight to lean down into the tennis balls. So those muscles, they get tight. It'll feel like ropes on either side of your spine. Those muscles get so tight. This is an area that really needs extra attention from us. Then you'll lift your hips up. You're going to go underneath and take the tennis balls out. And drop your knees down, and then we're going to take them right up to the back of the neck. Holding them there, because if you let go, they're going to move out to the sides, but hold them there. You want to find the space at the base of your skull, right where the skull and the neck meet. Holding the balls there, and then start to rock your head up and down. Leaving all the weight of your head's pretty heavy, so if you lean the weight of your head back onto the ball and just rock, it's going to give you a nice massage. Start to rock from side to side. Then just finding a space where it feels good to have pressure, and take a few breaths, leaving the tennis ball there, letting the weight of your head totally sink back. Then we'll release, take the tennis balls out, let your head drop back. With the head resting on the floor, start to rock it from side to side. See how soft you can make that movement. The head is moving, but the muscles are doing the least amount of effort that needs to happen to move your head. And rock the head up and down. Just tuck the chin, and then stretch the front of the throat. Bringing the head into neutral, there's a slight tuck with the chin. You get to this point where you feel like the airway is very open. When you take a breath, there's no restriction through the back of the throat. And we're going to take the fingertips right onto the hairline. With the tips of the fingers, you're going to start to make these circles, pressing down into the little muscles that wrap around our scalp. Working your way from the front of the skull toward the back. Especially spending some time on the back of the skull above the ridge at the base of the head. And out toward the sides, above the ears. Tension from our neck muscles gets transferred up into there. Finding your way to the ridge at the base of the skull, the occipital ridge, we're going to take our thumbs onto that ridge and create some circles. You're going to work from the inside toward the outside, pressing, circling, drawing the tension out. And working your way down to the neck, taking the tips of the fingers onto the neck muscles on either side of the spine. You're going to circle. If your head moves at all while you're doing those circles, that's fine. Move down a few inches, circle some more. And then finally finding your way down to the space where the neck and the shoulder meet. Squeezing there. We'll come back up toward the face. You can either use the thumbs or the tips of the fingers. You're going to go right to the temples and create some circles around the temples. You can try to circle each way, see which one feels better. Slide down, find the cheekbone, and then right underneath the cheekbone you'll find some muscles. These are muscles that'll be tight if you tend to clench your jaw or if you grind your teeth. Tension here can contribute to TMJ syndrome. Now go down all the way to the end of your jaw, right to the bend at the jawbone. There's some muscles that are sitting right on top of there. Circling through those. You'll notice your jaw starting to relax as you work your way down the face so that there's space in between your upper and your lower teeth. That lets us know that we're not clenching. Sometimes we do it without even realizing it. And we'll let the arms drop down. You can bring your arms down with the palms up. Tuck your shoulder blades underneath your back so you feel like your chest is very open. You can take a bolster or a blanket underneath the legs. placing a folded blanket across your hips or a sandbag to give you some weight. That weight tells your nervous system that everything is okay, that you can calm down. It'll help with the process of slowing your breath down as well. So then once you are settled into that position, bring all of your awareness onto your breath. Noticing the pace of your breathing, noticing the areas of your body that move when you breathe. Working on making your breath slower and deeper. Every breath gets a little bit slower. As the breath slows down, it's a constant process of letting go of tension. Every exhale moves down one more layer. When you feel like you've let go of everything that you're holding on to, take another exhale. See if you can go down one layer deeper, getting even softer. Finally, we soften even our breath. We let go of our control. Rather than creating the pace of our inhale and exhale, we let the breath do whatever it wants to do. We find this sense of existing in a place of total ease. There's no effort, there's no struggle. You can stay here in Savasana for as long as you like, breathing, letting your physical body move into its normal state of relaxation and ease. Namaste. Thank you for practicing with us.